Okay. Good evening and welcome to the October 15th meeting of the City of Vista Planning Commission. Would you all rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance led by Commissioner Looney?
Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Ms. Principe, roll call, please. Very good. Thank you very much. Commissioners, before you are the minutes from our last meeting of August 20th. Are there any changes to the minutes? And if not, could I hear a motion to approve? Who is?
I think it's supposed to be me.
Okay. Sure. We're having a technical problem, so we'll take a little break here and let everything get reloaded.
Surprising.
Mm-hmm.
It's rather surprising.
Yes. Lopez.
Claire Lopez.
All right. There we go. All right. Commissioner Kramer has made a motion to approve the minutes from August 20th. Do I have a second? Commissioner Garrison?
I will second that that motion.
All right. It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of August 20th. Please cast your vote. And the motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Mr. Connolly, any changes to our agenda this evening?
No changes this evening, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. The next item on our agenda is oral communications. This is a time that the Commission sets aside for items that are not on our agenda. You're limited to 3 minutes to speak about any item that you would like to bring before the Commission. You need to fill out a speaker slip, and I have none. So is there anyone wishing to address the Commission on oral communications? If not, we will move along to our public hearings. And our first public hearing is Development Code Amendment. Mr. Ressler, your staff report, please.
Thank you, Chairman, members of the Planning Commission. The item before you tonight is a citywide development code update. The application number is P19-0311. In an effort to streamline a review of multiple small amendments to the development code, staff has assembled several items and included it into one staff report. The Planning Commission may direct staff to remove one item if there's a concern, and we can discuss it separately. However, ultimately, the Planning Commission's recommendation will then move to the City Council for formal consideration. The proposed amendment to Chapter 17-11 .84, lot line adjustments, would eliminate the 15-day time frame required for approval, conditional approval, or denial of lot line adjustment applications. The next amendment is to the accessory building definition, which currently limits the size of accessory buildings to less than 50% of the floor area of the main building on site. Staff is proposing exemptions for properties located within the E1, A1, or OR zones, which are typically larger in land area. Staff is also proposing to allow metal detached structures subject to the review and approval by the zoning administrator. Staff is proposing modification to the swimming pool definition to include location limitations for swimming pools, which are consistent with the accessory building requirements. Next, staff is proposing amendment to a list of permitted uses in the A1 agricultural zone to clarify that the production of trees, vines, and other horticultural stock shall be performed in ground. In regards to second units, staff is proposing to remove the requirement that utility services for proposed second units must be serviced through the existing single-family home. In the RM zone, staff is proposing to remove section 1834.080, distance between buildings, from the chapter and utilize section 1834.040, which is side yard setbacks, which currently requires a 15-foot building separation between attached units and a 10-foot separation between detached units. In the mixed-use zone, staff is proposing to amend the list of permitted uses to include one adult dog or cat per dwelling unit as a use permitted by right, which is consistent with the current pet allowance in the RM zone. In the commercial zone, staff is proposing to amend the list of permitted uses upon the granting of a special use permit by replacing auto laundry with car wash and changing the approval process for outdoor eating facilities to a plot plan process in order to expedite the review. Staff is proposing 3 amendments to Chapter 1854, off-street parking and loading requirements. First, staff is proposing to include auto service stations within the number of parking spaces required section. Second, staff is proposing to change the parking lot striping standard from 2 5-inch stripes separated by 8 inches to 2 4-inch stripes separated by 10 inches. Third, staff is proposing to prescribe a 16-foot 6-inch long parking envelope with a 2.5-foot vehicular overhang, which is consistent with other related code requirements. Staff is proposing 5 amendments to the general provisions, conditions, and exceptions chapter. First is an exemption for properties located within the mixed-use or downtown Vista specific plan zone for the special setback requirement in section 1858.020 and allow special setback modifications as a condition of approval. Second, staff is proposing to include swimming pools in the section 1858.270, which is location of accessory buildings, and require all 2-story accessory buildings to comply with the standard setbacks within the zone. The third, staff is proposing to include a minimum separation of 3 feet between fences and walls anywhere on a building site. Next, staff is proposing to allow minimum floor areas to be modified as an express condition of approval of a site development plan or plot plan. Last, staff is proposing to remove the existing trash enclosure standard and require the size of the collection area to be designed to accommodate containers consistent with the current methods of the franchise refuge contractor. In regards to Chapter 1864, Site Development Plan and Plot Plans, staff is proposing to require facade modifications to existing multi-tenant commercial and industrial developments subject to a plot plan review process. In regards to Chapter 1876, temporary use permits, Staff is proposing to clarify that temporary use permits can be issued for properties located or designated for commercial and industrial uses within applicable, specific plan areas. And second, staff is proposing to allow the city planner the authority to approve or deny temporary use permits for temporary or promotional activities that are not listed within the section, and temporary use permits for temporary activities that exceed a duration of 5 days. With that, staff is recommending the Planning Commission recommends City Council approval of the amendments to Titles 17 and 18 of the Development Code related to subdivisions and zoning regulations. That concludes staff's report. I'm here to answer any questions you might have tonight.
Any questions of Mr. Ressler? Everybody's reaching, so we have a few. Commissioner Kramer.
I do, but before we start, do you want to try to hit each section and let everyone go through so we're not keep jumping around? Or
That would be a wise idea. Okay. So let's start with Title 17 subdivisions. Any comment, any questions on the changes there?
Yes.
Okay.
That was my first one. So what does eliminating the 15-day time frame requirement, what does that accomplish?
Well, currently, that's a time frame that we actually go beyond in terms of review and approval of that item. So it's not applicable, I guess, at this point. John and I discussed it. We don't necessarily know exactly how it got in there. However, it's something that staff is recommending removing it because it isn't applicable at this time.
Okay.
All right. Any questions on the interpretation and definitions of accessory buildings in Title 18? Commissioner Garrison?
Yes, Mr. Ressler, doesn't that really mean that it's not an accessory dwelling unit? It's another house?
This is an accessory building, not an accessory dwelling unit. Those are
Right.
two separate items. Accessory
Right.
building
That's what I
would
meant.
be a storage facility, a garage, non-habitable floor area.
So, but it could be, it eliminates the size restriction.
No, it exempts it in the E1, A1, and OR zones. So basically what we're saying is those zones have larger properties, and we feel that they should be able to accommodate larger detached structures rather than the standard 10, 12,000 square foot lots. So we're exempting them from the requirement of the limitation of the 50% of the existing floor area of the main building.
And what is the reason for that, other than give the homeowner the opportunity to build a bigger building on their property?
That's correct, because the lots are larger than standard lot. Minimum lot size in an E1 zone is half an acre. So having a half an acre, many a times we have barns, larger garages and so forth that people come in and propose that have a single-family home of, say, 1,200 square feet, 1,500 square feet, and staff feels as though they should have the availability to develop larger, detached, non-habitable structures within those zones.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Kramer?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So does that also allow cargo containers to be put on those lots?
No, that's not. That would be subject to a different section, which we would only allow in conjunction with construction.
Okay, but isn't a cargo container a metal detached structure? I mean,
No, it wouldn't be, because it's not affixed to a foundation. It would be temporarily put on a property, and the only way we would allow for that is in conjunction with construction on the property.
So we do have a means to stop that, should someone want to put,
Cargo container.
That's correct.
perfect, okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Commissioner Kramer. That was my question on that structure. A long time ago, this city had a real struggle with what were called Butler buildings, and they were metal barns back in another lifetime. So it's been an ongoing issue. How about in the definition for swimming pools as an accessory building? Any questions on that? Seeing none, let's move along to, okay. Commissioner Kramer? Oh, sorry, there you are.
Thank you. Can you explain what we're trying to control? With the swimming pool?
We're actually basically codifying something that we've already been implementing in our department. Currently, we restrict swimming pools to the setbacks of an accessory building, which is typically 5 foot on the side, 5 foot on the rear for interior lot lines. All we're doing is just memorializing it within the code and something that we can refer back to when a client comes back and asks where it's located within the development code. So we're just basically confirming what we've been doing in the code with this amendment.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay, and then moving along to the A1 zone. Any questions there? Commissioner Looney?
My question was specifically to 1854, item C. So is that still inclusive within your?
I'm sorry.
My question is regarding section C of H at 1854. Are we still in that group? Over here?
No, we're at 1810.
Page 3.
We're in the 1810 right now.
Okay.
Okay. Item C in the list of amendments. So, Mr. Ressler, on this item for the A1 zone, this is saying that horticultural stock has to be in the ground. We're not going to do hydroponics.
Greenhouses are permitted by right, and you'd be able to do pot growing within a greenhouse setting and not within an open environment.
Okay.
Within an open environment, with this amendment, we'd require the plants to be
In the ground.
in the ground, correct?
Okay, very good. All right, moving along to item, Commissioner Garrettson?
You did say marijuana, right? Is this addressed you said pot?
I said grown in pots.
Oh, pots.
That's correct. Yes.
Gotcha. So this does not address marijuana growing?
No, it does not.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Kramer?
That was my question, too. Thank you.
Oh, my. Commissioner Grimm? Okay, then let's move on to item D, second unit requirements. Commissioner Grimm?
Yeah, I had two questions. The first is the very first part of that paragraph indicates that that particular Assembly bill allows local agencies the ability to require separate utilities. So my first question would be, so that's not mandated. That's basically up to the jury. They're giving it for the jurisdiction to decide.
We would just be following the Assembly bill and the SB 229 and 494, which indicate that if it's a new structure, it could have separate service, but if it's attached, that would have to go through the existing service of the single-family home.
Okay, but it's not mandated, right?
No.
Yeah. Okay. The second part of the question is then, and I think that's kind of referring to what Commissioner Garrettson was alluding to on that other item, is that with the fact that there is no meter required through the original building or the existing building, essentially what it's doing is you're allowing two single-family homes on a single lot in a single-family zone. Is that pretty much correct?
And that's what's currently required in our code. That's correct.
Well, currently you have to run it through the meter. You don't.
No, right now it's run through the existing single-family residence, so no, there would only be one meter.
I can clarify a little.
Thank you.
SDG&E has a requirement that the second units or accessory dwelling units run on a separate meter. They can't run through the house meter, so our code's inconsistent with the way SDG&E permits it.
I see. But you're still ultimately, the ultimate product would be basically two standalone single-family houses on a single-family lot, basically.
State legislature says we have to, yes.
Okay, thank you. That answers my question.
All right. Let's move on then to item E in Chapter 18.34, the RM multi-residential zone. Distance between dwellings. Questions about that? Commissioner Garrettson.
Why can't this just change it to be consistent rather than eliminating it?
They need to be redundant. Currently, right now, we have two sections that define separation between buildings. One is the section 1834.080 that we're eliminating. And then we also have a side yard setback requirement. The side yard setback requirement actually includes the separation between detached and attached structures. So instead of having two inconsistent sections, eliminate one section and just use the setback requirements that we have been using with the projects that we've been bringing before
So it's
the Planning
just
Commission.
to be consistent.
It'd be consistent, correct.
Thank you.
All right, let's move on then to item F in mixed-use zone, one cat and one dog. Commissioner Kramer?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So 1 Main Street, we've got some, that's mixed use, correct? So within 1 Main Street, the residential up above is one cat, one dog?
So we have been discussing this issue because we have a requirement in our multifamily zone, the RM zone, for one cat and one dog, but we failed to put any requirement for a pet in the mixed-use zone when we adopted it in 2012. We've since had some residential projects come online. They act and look and feel just like the multi-residential projects, so we felt it was appropriate to apply the same pet restrictions. But yes, any residential projects in the mixed-use zone could have one pet per the code amendment.
Okay, I'm good with that. Thank you.
Okay. Then item G, amendments to the C1 zone on auto laundry to car wash. Way back when, as I was talking about earlier, when the city incorporated, they adopted the county's zoning ordinance to kind of make things consistent. And I would bet this goes all the way back to 1963. So anyway, good change. How about item G, item B under that, limitation of uses on outdoor eating? Any questions? Commissioner Grimm.
Yeah, it's just a quick question. And I've been on long enough, I should know the answer to this, but the final authority for the site development plan versus the final approval authority for the plot plan?
Plot plan would be at the zoning administrator level. The site development plan, depending on the application, would either go through the zoning administrator or the planning commission.
Great, thank you.
And then item H, dealing with off-street parking and loading requirements. Item A is the number of parking spaces required for automobile service station. Any questions? All right. Item B then regards the striping requirements. Commissioner Kramer.
What does this change accomplish?
Well, currently in the field, we typically require the 4-inch wide stripes with a 10-inch separation, and our code requires the 5-inch with the 8-inch. So instead of, we're making the modification to be consistent with what actually takes place in the field.
Got it. Thank you.
And the width of the roller that they use is 4 inches,
It's a 4-inch,
right?
typically, that's correct.
Okay. Commissioner Garrettson.
So this does not change the size of the parking area for the cars. It just changes the striping and the distance.
That's correct.
Okay, item C is the parking lot line dimension and area requirements. Any questions about that? Commissioner Looney.
On the 2'6" vehicle overhang, is that allowed to go over a planter area?
That's correct.
Okay. Moving on to the general provisions and conditions and exceptions. Item A is the special setback requirements for the mixed use or the downtown specific plan. Any questions about that? Commissioner Garrettson?
Just, why are we doing this?
Because typically in the mixed-use zone in the downtown Vista specific plan, we encourage development to go towards the street and frame the street, where this section requires the buildings to be set farther back. it's kind of inconsistent with the vision of those documents or those zones. So we're allowing the flexibility of those zones to go closer to the street to be consistent with the visions that we have for those zones. And I think it also allows for modifications. So if we have a specific project in mind that would be more suitable to be closer to the street, we have the flexibility, or Planning Commission would have the flexibility to allow that modification through the entitlement process.
Thank you.
All right, then moving along to location of accessory buildings under item B. Any questions about that section? All right, item C is fences and walls. 3-foot separation between fences and walls with a total height of 10 feet, if I remembered that right. Mm-hmm. Commissioner Looney.
Yeah, Michael, is this consistent with the clearances required by the fire department to access around any buildings?
John, do you want to?
No, this is not intended to cover fire department access areas. The issue here was that we were getting a number of retaining walls that were 5-6 feet high, and then a 6-foot freestanding wood fence on top of the retaining wall right at the edge of the wall, and it created this massive wall to the neighbor. So after a number of complaints, we've kind of instituted a policy when we can to get people to have a separation between the fence and wall to allow some landscaping to break it up.
Okay.
And that's the intent of this code and measure.
Okay, thank you.
All right, item D is the minimum residential building area. Any questions of staff on that? Item E is the refuge collection and storage areas. J then, site development plans and plot plans. Exemptions? Any questions? And then finally, item K, the temporary use permits. First item is for clarification of temporary use permits. Commissioner Grimm?
Yeah, another quick question, just is the thought on this is that if you have a specific plan area and you want to, you may not have all your infrastructure in, but there might be appropriate for some businesses to open, or is there another reason for that?
Currently, our code limits the issuance of temporary use permits in the commercial industrial zones. However, staff feels as though an existing commercial industrial use within the specific plan should still have the right to have the same outdoor activity subject to the requirements of the temporary use permit. It wouldn't allow an additional use on a property. It would just allow a temporary activity to take place on an existing business site.
Okay, great.
Okay. All right. This is a public hearing. I'm going to open the public hearing, but I have no speaker slips up here. So anyone wishing to address the commission on any of these items? If not, we will close the public hearing and open it up to commissioner discussion. Commissioner Kramer.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Wow, you guys have been working hard while we haven't been here, getting everything in order. I think it's great what you've done, and I intend to support it. I was glad that the chairman offered each one of us the opportunity to speak, because that way we could hit it all at one time. So,
You're welcome. That was a great idea. Commissioner Bell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just want to include the letter that we were all provided by Mr. Miltenberger. Is Mr. Miltenberger here tonight? No? Are you here? Okay. Just want to make sure that the comments are included in the record. I don't think there's anything we can do or change right now, but certainly these are issues we've faced before, and I think in general, individual projects ask for these kinds of changes on a case-by-case basis, and where applicable, we can certainly deal with them. But it's good to know that their common issues are amongst all people who see these out there. So,
All right. Any other comments or discussion? All right. Are we ready for a motion? Commissioner Garrettson.
Yes, I would move that we would approve P190331.
And Commissioner Kramer.
I second the motion.
All right, Commissioners, we've got a motion to approve the amendments as proposed by staff, and it's been seconded, so please cast your votes. There we go. Very good, and the motion passes unanimously. So that concludes our first public hearing. We're going to switch staff members and switch the presentation, so we're going to be take about a 5-minute break. I'm going to give the students from Rancho a break here and let you come up and have us sign your forms now, and you can head for home and not sit through the next item.
They can stay if they want, though, right?
You can stay if you want.
Just initial right here?
Yeah, on the first box.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Same thing here?
Yeah.
Just right above here?
Thank you.
All right, you're welcome.
Is this on?
What's up, dude?
No? Happy Saturday.
All I can see is flames.
Handwriting looks nice.
And we're back. The next item on the agenda is a public hearing on the amendment to the code, Chapter 18.34 of the Development Code for the RM Multifamily Residential Zone. Mr. Conley, your staff report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. This is an amendment to the RM zone, as the chairman identified. The proposed amendment would amend the multi-residential or RM zone to revise the list of special uses, which is in subsection K of the zone. The amendment would add a new category to the list of special uses for one emergency shelter within the entire zone, not to exceed 60 beds. An emergency shelter is defined as housing with minimal supportive services for homeless persons. It's limited to an occupancy of 6 months or less. No individual or household will be denied emergency services or emergency shelter because of an inability to pay. The zoning map is shown here citywide. The RM zone is the orange zoning designation, so essentially spread along some of the commercial corridors along the 78 as well as up along North Santa Fe and East Vista Way in the northerly limits of the city. The zoning amendment would affect all those areas that are designated RM or shown in orange for one shelter. The proposed zoning code amendment would be consistent with the goals and policies in the general plan, specifically in the housing element to promote housing for persons with special needs, as well as policy 4.4 to provide shelter opportunities consistent with our homeless master plan. And those findings are also included in the resolution before the commission. The special use permit process is proposed to accompany this entitlement to enable the decision makers to do a thorough design review of the proposal and to allow for operational conditions to be imposed if needed. As you know, zoning code amendments are at the discretion of the City Council, and it requires a formal recommendation from the Planning Commission, which is required through state law. Staff is requesting that the Planning Commission's review and recommendation of this amendment to the City Council for the RM zone. And that completes my staff report, and I'm available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Conley. Any questions for Mr. Conley? Mr. Garrettson.
Yes, Mr. Conley, could you put the map back up there?
Absolutely.
And if you could use your pointer and, the map's a little small and the colors are not as vivid as I would like them to
So
be.
the RM zone, there we go, is over here off of West Vista Way around Emerald, on the south side of 78 and La Tortuga area there around Breeze Hill and the courthouse. It's up along North Melrose. And there's a large swath of it in here between North Melrose and North Santa Fe. And then moving up North Santa Fe as you move out of town. Same on East Vista Way as you move out of the specific plan areas, which are the light purple. You'll see the orange designations that kind of ring the commercial corridors along our major thoroughfares. The beige and light colored tans are single-family zoning that are outside those multifamily zones. But everything shown in the bright orange here that the pointer's on is RM.
Excellent. Thank you.
Commissioner Hastings.
Sorry, how was the 60-bed number?
So there's
arrived at?
currently a proposal that's been submitted by a nonprofit that the city's looking at. They're asking for an opportunity for up to 60 beds. We obviously want to limit it at the city level to make sure that it's a number consistent with something that can be accomplished, and so it lines up with a proposal that'll be coming before the Planning Commission at a later date.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Garrettson.
If you looked at all of those zones there, how many of these 60-unit facilities could be developed in the entire city? Basically each area, right?
I'm not sure I understand your question. The zoning code amendment only allows for one.
Citywide.
One's for citywide.
One within the entire zone, citywide, correct. So you wouldn't be able to build more than one within that entire orange zoning designation.
Gotcha. That's what I wanted clarification, that
Yes.
it's one citywide. Thank you.
Commissioner Kramer.
That was exactly where I was going. Thank you, Mr. Garrettson.
I had the same question myself, and I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing to allow just one. I'm a little concerned that it might be a spot zoning to allow us one use in one location and not citywide. So I'm kind of struggling with that, but I understand why it's being done, and I support it. I suppose if somebody else wanted to do the same thing somewhere else in the city, they could come back and ask for amendment to the code for two shelters in the city and go through the same process. But, okay.
From the staff side of things, there is no good zoning designation for an emergency shelter, to be honest. It's a very
okay.
difficult thing to zone for. We do allow it by right in the C2 zone, which is the dark red on this
Right.
map. There's very little of it, but it is a use by right that the state requires you zone for. The reason we're making this amendment is because we know we have an entity that has a project that's viable that we can zone for, and we're allowing that. But outside the realm of that project, the staff wouldn't be moving forward with a change to the RM zone. We'd be continuing to look in the heavier zones for that. But in light of this project, if the project doesn't move forward, then we have the ability to come back and modify the code.
Okay. So there are opportunities in other zones in the city for an emergency shelter?
Yes, there are.
Okay, very good. All right, commissioners. Finished with the staff report. Questions? This is a public hearing, so I'm going to open the public hearing. I, again, have no speaker slips, so anyone wishing to address the commission on this item? If not, we will close the public hearing and open it up to commissioner discussion. Commissioner Grimm.
Actually, I'm just going to float a recommendation. I would move staff recommendation.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the staff recommendation. Commissioner Kramer?
I second, oh my gosh, the motion to accept as written.
Okay. We have a motion and a second to approve the staff recommendation for the code amendment. Cast our votes. And the motion passes unanimously. Very good. Commissioner Garrison, did you have something else you wanted to add? Okay, thank you. Sorry I didn't get to you quick enough. All right. That concludes our public hearings for the evening. And the next item on our agenda, I believe, is reports and comments from commission members. Anyone have a comment they'd like to share with the city or the rest of the commission? And then comments from the Community Development Director. Mr. Connolly, your update?
So we will not have a meeting in early November. We'll have a meeting on the 19th of November, it looks like, for our next meeting. It'll be Mr. Stone's last meeting before he retires, so
oh my
we'll be able to
goodness.
send him off with the appropriate
Congratulations.
farewell.
I recommend it to all my friends. Retirement.
And I have no other comments this evening
Okay.
unless you have any questions. Thank you.
Very good.
Oh, Mr. Ressler wanted me to point out that the Sprouts store is going to open tomorrow. They have a grand
Yes.
opening, so they met their deadline of mid-October. And I should give my staff some props for making that happen because the city played a big hand in it. So that's good.
Very good.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Thank you, Michael. All right. If there's nothing else, then we will stand adjourned to November 19th. November 19th.